To hear Tucker Kraft tell it, the Packers need to get their own cultural house in order if they want to contend in 2025.
You are Locked On Packers, your daily Green Bay Packers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Packers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm Peter Bukowski, and I cover the Packers for The Leap, a newsletter I would love for you to subscribe to. Follow me on Twitter, Peter_Bukowski. Follow the podcast on Twitter, Locked On Packers. Like us on Facebook. Subscribe to the podcast to iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, wherever you find podcasts, you will find Locked On Packers, the number one Packers podcast on the internet, and the show for fans who know what happened. They want to know why and how. Thanks to everyone who makes Locked On Packers their first listen every day. We know you like starting your day. We hope you like starting your day with us as much as we like starting our day with you. We don't know that. We hope. We really do. Today's episode brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet and get $200 in bonus bets, win or lose, right now. That first $5 bet, FanDuel.com, to get started. Tucker Kraft had some strong words to say about the culture of the Green Bay Packers, about the energy and focus level of the Green Bay Packers during the exit interview process.
Well, we certainly didn't win anything. The whole last few games that we played, you could kind of feel what was brewing for us. We just didn't finish. I wouldn't necessarily say that the season was a failure. We learned a lot about some of the individuals on our team and how these players can impact the future of this building. So, not a complete failure, but like I said, just disappointing.
When you listen to the words and you connect the message of you could feel this brewing and I need to be a vocal leader, put those things together, it's not hard to do the math on what he's talking about here. And we're going to talk about Jordan Love a little bit later. But Matt LaFleur saying he wants Jordan Love to be a more vocal leader tells you that this culture was not where it needed to be. And what this tells me was the focus, the accountability, player to player, person to person was not there. You can go into a season feeling like the vibes are special. That's what you heard. Everyone, even guys like Mike Clemens, our pal, is not the kind of guy who's prone to hyperbole and these proclamations. He was, the culture of this team, the vibes, the energy, it's special. It felt that way. But the players seem to feel it too. And because this is such a young team, such a tight-knit team, sometimes that can lend itself to a feeling of comfort that is not conducive to competition. Nick Saban has talked about this, and you hear some of the great coaches talk about competitive discomfort. And this idea that if you are pushing yourself as hard as you can, and I'm not, that you can't be okay with that. And that there has to be a level of buy-in that says, if I am busting my ass at my maximum level for this every single day, and you're not, that I have not just a right, but a responsibility in a good culture to say, hey man, we got to pick it up. And you can do it in a constructive way. It doesn't have to be MFing guys and calling them out in team meetings and going, you're not giving good effort. It can be with an arm around the shoulder. Some guys need an arm around the shoulder, and some guys need a kick in the ass. That's the way that the world is. Leadership is not a one-size-fits-all approach. And when Matt LaFleur says at the end of the season, it's one thing for a coach to say it to a player. It's another thing for a player to say it to a player. This is where the young team build can have its flaws, and where draft and develop is insufficient, especially when your veterans, guys like Kenny Clark, he's not that rah-rah vocal, getting guys' faces guy. Jair Alexander, he is a outspoken personality to be sure. But I don't know. I can't say this with any sort of value judgment. I don't know if he is the kind of guy who in a meeting room or on a practice field is going to hold guys accountable. For whatever you want to say about Aaron Rodgers and his methodology, if you did not perform to the standard, he was going to let you know. We know that. He has said that and made that clear on the record. And in fact, part of the problem with Brett Favre later in his career was he just was he was just there to cash checks and play ball. He wasn't there to hold anyone's hand and be their parent. And the reason this is so interesting, and I don't want to make this all about Jordan Love because Tucker Kraft is the guy speaking here, is Jordan Love has the respect of the locker room. Presumably so does a player like Christian Watson or a player like Elton Jenkins, Rashawn Gary, Xavier McKinney, Quay Walker. The team needs those guys to step up. And again, this is where the flaw of the all-young team can come in. Because when everyone's boys, you don't always keep your boys as accountable as maybe you should. And this is where you hear Davante Adams on K Adams say, look, maybe they're looking for some veterans. I think they could use some veterans. Maybe he's talking about Davante Adams. But this is where you get a Josh Jacobs and you hope a year in Green Bay allows him to say, I can step up and I can say something. It is clear the culture of this team. And look, I was frustrated with how many messages I got, how many DMs and comments on videos, people going, Love's not the fiery leader that the Packers need him to be. Maybe, maybe not. I think he was the right voice last year and at times this year. But if you want to take that next step, this team needs, whether it's internally or externally, they need the players on this team to hold one another accountable. And if they need outside voices, if they need a Davante Adams, if they need, Brian Gutekunst wants to sign 26-year-old second contract free agents. But what if there's a 29-year-old corner, like say DJ Reed, who can come in and be a different voice? We've heard, go back to Julius Peppers. Didn't say a lot, but when he spoke, everyone listened. Jimmy Graham didn't say a lot, but when he spoke, everyone listened. Like they were not the prime versions of themselves when they came to Green Bay, but they had value in the locker room, setting a standard and holding people accountable. That's what leadership is. And so when you're Brian Gutekunst, and I think this goes back to Ted Thompson, when you're constantly turning over the roster with young players, you are missing that element. So the Packers have to determine if the guys on the roster now are enough, or if they need to go outside and find it. Like it could just be the case that if you get Jordan Love to speak up a little bit more, that's enough. It could just be the case that if you get Tucker Kraft and Josh Jacobs and Xavier McKinney now feeling comfortable, Evan Williams, we talked about this the other day, then that can be enough. I wonder though. I really do. Now, they have this team together, and Matt LaFleur mentioned in his end of year press conference that he doesn't think about age in that way, that these guys have been in the playoffs now 2 years. That's experience, and that should count. And I on that front, I agree with him, but that's not to say that that's going to be enough, and that's what the Packers have to figure out here. Now, I want to talk about Jordan Love because a lot has been said about Jordan Love. I'm not going to do the, hey, remember Jordan Love is really good thing. We did that already. But where can he really improve? I want to talk about that next on Locked On Packers. Today's episode brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. From big upsets to game-winning drives, the NFL playoffs are better with FanDuel because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. The FanDuel app gives you everything you need for live bets, same-game parlays, and so much more. Visit the website, check out the lines, play around, poke around, see what you can find. There's NBA futures to bet on. There's college basketball. A lot of fun stuff out there still for you right now. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today and get started with $200 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com. Make this playoff season unforgettable. Of course, there's the NFL playoffs. Hello. An official sportsbook partner of the NFL. So I went back and watched every Jordan Love interception because I wanted to see. Okay, when I hear these criticisms of, oh, he's got to get the turnovers under control, I wanted to know what that meant. Not that I thought that that was a valid criticism necessarily, but I just wanted to see what was driving it. And there were 14 of them. And I don't count any of the ones taken back on penalty because it was, in almost every case, like an offsides and he's just flinging the ball up. Those don't count. He's just trying to make a play because he knows the play doesn't count. That's kind of the point. It's a no risk, all reward play. Now, what I found was ball placement really not the problem by and large. There were some times when pressure caused the ball to work in a different kind of way than you would want it because he's falling off balance, those kinds of things. But that is a situation to me that is more about the sack avoidance thing. In the first half of the season, in order to avoid sacks, Jordan was throwing the ball up for grabs, even at times when he had open receivers. And in the second half of the season, because he was healthy, he was able to just avoid the pressure altogether. And that's the piece of this that to me is the clearest evidence that the turnover problem, such that it existed in the first half, was about his inability to move. Like, watch him against the Lions in the rain. He can barely push off to try and make a throw to Josh Jacobs. He can barely get his arm going because he's trying to push off. It just is so obvious to me that that was about his health. Now, there were plays that he's got to just eat. Like the safety would have been safety against the Rams. That's a 5-point swing because instead of taking the safety, you turn it into a pick six. Now, he's trying to throw that ball away. He gets a little bit unlucky, but you just got to eat that. I think the Lions one, the pick six to Kirby Joseph, same thing where if you know you can't move and you're basically falling down trying to get the ball to Josh Jacobs, just go down. It's the end of the first half. A punt is not going to kill you. That's what happened against the 49ers at the end. Just forced it. You don't have to make every play. Sometimes a sack is an okay play. You'd rather a sack than an interception unless we're talking about third down. Go try and make the play on third down, especially if it's a deep shot. Just throw it up. Arm punts are fine on third down. Pick six is not so much. So that's part of it. The other part of this, though, and Matt LaFleur echoed this. So if you have a problem with what I'm about to say, take it up with the coach. There were a number of times when it's details from someone else that ultimately leads to the interception. So the pick six is a great example. That is a roll to the right. They slide the protection so that Jordan Love can roll out, and they want to throw the ball back across the field. Is actually what they're trying to do. It's a really aggressive call against LA. And they blow the protection. They just do not count it outright. They have enough guys to block it, and they and it wasn't even like the Rams did anything that tricky. They just miscounted. So that's a problem. You can't have that. It's not acceptable. The Malik Heath interception, the second interception that Jordan Love throws, that route is supposed to be, this is according to Matt LaFleur now, that route is supposed to be at 20 yards. He runs it at 15. If he runs it at 20, the rhythm of the play makes more sense. Go back and watch the play. When Malik Heath makes his break, Jordan Love is not ready to throw because he's not expecting that depth. 5 yards off on depth on a 20-yard route is enormous. The linebacker should never be in a position to make a play on that ball because it should be layered over top. Now, it is on Jordan, but Jordan he sees the window to the right. That linebacker should never be involved in the play, but he ran the route at the wrong depth. So, yes, it is on Jordan Love ultimately, but the receiver makes a pretty big difference. That is the difference probably in whether that gets completed or not. On the first interception to Darius Slay makes an incredible play. But as LaFleur pointed out, on a route like that, Dontavian Wicks had won. He had gotten ahead of Darius Slay. And you're taught as a receiver, you need to stack that corner vertically. What does that mean? It means what it sounds like. When you stack blocks, what happens? You put one on top of the other. Once you have that corner beat, what you have to do is then get on top of him. Like in front, directly in front of him is the goal, as much as you can. So that if he's going to play the ball, he has to play the ball through you. And usually that means committing pass interference or making it look like pass interference, or you can sell pass interference. If Wicks stacks Darius Slay, the ball is a little inside and it is like a percentile underthrown. It is what JT O'Sullivan at QB School often calls a good throw, not a great throw. Not a perfect throw, but a good throw. In that coverage, Darius Slay slingshots himself forward, grabs Dontavian Wicks' wrist, slingshots himself forward into perfect position then to make a play on the ball. If Wicks has stacked Darius Slay like he's supposed to, he's not going to have a chance to make a play on that ball unless it's through the arms of Dontavian Wicks. So, is that a Jordan Love problem? It is, but it isn't, right? So the details from other players have to be better. Now, the injuries also give you the interception, for example, against the Texans, the second one. He's got Christian Watson on a deep inbreaker. I think maybe that 20-yard in. Dig. And Zach Tom loses. And he's pushing, I believe it's Will Anderson around the arc. And all Jordan Love has to do is step up. But instead, he fades left and throws it kind of as he's falling. The ball sails and it's an interception. That to me is not a ball placement throw. That's a fundamentals pocket mobility throw. That either needs to be a sack or you need to step up in the pocket. And this was something that I saw a number of times over the course of the season. And you will hear quarterbacks in particular talk about this. When you have a knee injury, you are worried all season about someone running into that knee. And so you may not want to step up because you're putting that knee closer to the oncoming rush and there's the potential to get twisted and someone fall into you and get undercut and all kinds of stuff. It's not fun. It's not pretty. Jordan Love in the NFL has not had to deal with this before. Last year, some of his best plays came when he stepped up into the pocket and made a throw. And reliably, consistently this year, he didn't do that. And I have to believe the knee and groin injuries were reasons for that. Now to this leadership point, and I think this is vital. He is a cool, calm, collect guy. And I don't think it's fair to say, well, he needs to be out there. He needs to be a more fiery leader. Why? Why? Not everyone is like that. You don't see like Mahomes over on the sidelines yelling at guys. You don't see Lamar Jackson on the sidelines getting people the business. You don't see Josh Allen doing that. Joe Montana didn't do that. You don't need, like, you're used to Aaron Rodgers and seeing that it mattered to him, right? Like the details matter and the competitive spirit that he had. But it's not every quarterback that has to do that. Now, is that to say that he's doing everything he can be? Clearly not. Matt LaFleur would like to see him become more of a vocal leader. And now, year 2, he's entrenched. He's the guy. I think it's important that Matt LaFleur said, look, everyone in the locker room respects him. We knew that before he was even the quarterback. We heard that from players on the team going, this guy's really good. We love him. We'll run through a wall for Jordan. And we heard that 2023, before the year, before they even saw him play, before they even knew he was as good as he is. Now, 2 years in, they've gone to the playoffs twice. They just won 11 games. Like, it's time now to step into that role as the guy. Hold people accountable and feel comfortable. Like, I think he feels comfortable in his skin. He's got that quiet confidence. If this were 2017, you might call it BDE. He's got that. I wouldn't, but you might. Sometimes you need more than that, though, because it is about holding these guys accountable, especially if other teammates are not going to do that. It falls on the quarterback ultimately in those scenarios when you don't have other players on the team. He's sort of like middle management, and then you've got the head coach. And so if Jordan Love can do that, this team can get to where it wants to get to. But I think he wants to make every play. If he just learns, sometimes a sack is okay. I frankly think that is enough, so long as the other guys are also playing with good details. And again, Matt LaFleur, it's going to sound to some people like you're making excuses for Jordan Love. 5 yards of distance and route depth. That is enormous. That's a huge problem. You, in a 6-man protection, give up a free runner against a 5-man rush. Cannot happen. You have it blocked up. You have enough bodies. You blew the protection. So that kind of stuff has to stop. There's no elevating out of you have a free runner when you have a protection that absolutely should be enough. Or when Jordan Love has time to make a throw and you run the route at a wildly wrong depth. Those are the mistakes that just you cannot have. Like this not stacking Darius Slay. He's a veteran. He makes a great play. If that's a lesser corner, that might still be a completion because the throw was good enough to be a completion. I'm not at all worried about Jordan Love. And I'm not worried about this team. And I want to talk more about the team and its future next on Locked On Packers. Growing your small business in 2025 comes down to how well you can hire. And let's face it, better hires start with smarter insights. That's where LinkedIn comes in. With the strongest hiring data available, LinkedIn helps you identify the right candidates, giving you the confidence to make the best decisions for your business. I've used LinkedIn for a long, long time, and it can be a game changer when it comes to looking for the right fit. Small businesses are wearing a lot of hats, so every hire is crucial. LinkedIn gets that. That's why they connect you with the best candidates, using data you won't find anywhere else. From unique skills and interests to the connections you share, LinkedIn helps you find the right person for the job. In fact, 72% of small businesses say LinkedIn helped them find quality and qualified candidates, if I could speak. Hire smarter this year and find your next great hire on LinkedIn. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonnfl. That's linkedin.com/lockedonnfl to post your job for free. Terms and conditions do apply. I know it's been a funeral on Packers Twitter and Blue Sky and all those things the last couple days. But entering free agency, the Green Bay Packers have the fewest snaps in the NFL walking out the door. Just 14.6% of their snaps are set to hit free agency. On the other hand, the Minnesota Vikings, 45.4% of their team are free agents, unrestricted free agents. And it's big guys. It's Aaron Jones, it's Harrison Smith, it's Sam Darnold, it's Byron Murphy, it's Cam Bynum. It is big time contributors to that team. They have major decisions to make. The Packers do not. It's TJ Slayton, who is an important part of their run defense, don't get me wrong. But I can't imagine you have to break the bank to bring him back. And Brandon McManus, who anyone could have had 3 months ago. Matt LaFleur made it seem pretty obvious that they want him back and they're going to get him back. I'm not sure you absolutely need to bring back anybody. Frankly, anybody. TJ Slayton, you'd want to bring back. Brandon McManus, you'd really want to bring back. There's not much left here. So just so we're understanding this. This team won 11 games. 2 more than last year. They improved by basically every metric. They are the youngest team in the league again. The youngest playoff team again. And are almost entirely intact and can be basically near 100% intact in terms of snaps going into next season. That sort of continuity is unheard of in the NFL. It's why you draft and develop, and it speaks to the development of players under Brian Gutekunst. Now, I don't expect certain players who are not free agents to be on the team. We talked about Jair Alexander. He's not a free agent. He's not going to be on this team in 2025, in all likelihood. I think that it is a sad situation to talk about because of the risks of brain injuries. But I was texting with someone earlier and I was like, would you be shocked if Romeo Doubs just retired? They said no. Now, they didn't have any direct knowledge of this, but I'm just saying it is within the realm of possibilities that something like that happens. Already wearing the Guardian cap, already had a bad concussion. There's another bad concussion. And remember, there's really no such thing as a good concussion. They're all bad. They're all brain injuries. And that is before you even account for the simmering tension that was created in that locker room by him getting suspended, asking for the ball, all those things. This ties into where we started today with Tucker Kraft and the questions about Jordan Love. If you're not pulling on the rope in the direction as everyone else, then you got to find a different rope. And if you're going to do a cultural house cleaning or at least take cultural stock of your team, then those kinds of things just aren't going to be tolerated, especially if you're not going to be contributing. Like George Pickens gets a lot of, speaking of rope, a lot of it because he is the Pittsburgh Steelers passing game. When he's not on the field, they cannot throw the ball. He is by far their best pass catcher, by far their most explosive offensive player. The rules are different for George Pickens. That's not Romeo Doubs. And Jair Alexander, yes, he's a player that is that good that if he were playing 17 games every year, there would be no question about whether Jair Alexander was going to be playing in 2025 in Green Bay. But he's played 14 total games the last 2 seasons. 3 years ago, missed half a season. He's played a full season once in 4 years. That's not great. That's not great. And so you can't be performing well if you're not on the field. Now, the point of this, though, to start was this team that, by the way, it was 16-10, -3 in the turnover battle in the fourth quarter on the road against the 2 seed. It's a 1-score game. Matt was asked, Coach LaFleur was asked if he feels like they're close. He kind of equivocated and dissembled and wouldn't quite give a straight answer on that. But I can, because I'm not the head coach. They are close. And there's this, I'm hearing from people, oh, they need to add 3 or 4 impact players. No, they don't. No, they don't. It would really help to buttress the pass rush. They really need some speed in the receiver room. They talked about wanting to make Tucker Kraft a more featured part of the offense. I think that can alleviate a lot of the issues that they're having. Because you can just throw him a 2-yard pass and he can create after the catch. And they need to add some depth at corner. They don't need some roster overhaul. They don't need some huge influx of talent. This roster is good enough. If the young guys grow up a little bit and they're able to bring in some talent at some key places, that can be enough for this team. But look, they took a big swing on Lucas Van Ness. So far, that has not paid off. They can't miss on those kinds of players. So that means it's up to Brian Gutekunst now. Get into offseason mode and figure this out, which is exactly what we are going to do over the next couple of months as Brian Gutekunst tries to do the same. Follow me on all the social medias, Peter_Bukowski. Jason Hirschhorn is going to join us later in the week. We are going to do our PFWA awards ballots. Spoiler alert, there will be very few Packers on those ballots. We'll get into some of the places where there will be Packers because I think the rookie voting, there will be some Packers. We normally would not dive into that, but I think in this case we will. So that's coming up later in the week and much more in terms of interviews and fun stuff coming your way here in the weeks and months ahead. Follow me, follow the podcast, subscribe on YouTube, on wherever you get podcasts, rate and review so you can stay Locked On Packers.